Hey everybody, Papa Todd Takes. This is Papa Todd. Let's talk a little bit about safety today. So, what I wanted to talk about, I was thinking about this morning. Let's say you have a role to fill in your plant. You're the hiring manager. You're responsible for determining, hey, I need to get a safety person in here. What do I need to look for, right? So, and this is coming from a shop that maybe doesn't have anybody. Or you had a safety manager for years, that person left, and now you're trying to backfill the role. So, I think there's a couple things you need to look at. One, there's a couple different types, there's several different types of safety people out there, like everybody else, right? But I think you really kind of need to break it down into a couple things. So, for one, are you looking for compliance first and foremost, or are you looking for culture first and foremost? And so, what's the difference there? So, by compliance, I'm saying, is your number one thing, hey, we got a mess, we need to straighten stuff up, we have high injury rates, all this kind of stuff. So right now, do we just need the basic building blocks? Do we need to be able to comply with all the OSHA laws? And if that's the case, we need somebody who's going to come in here and kind of be a ball buster, right? And start working their way through the code and making sure they're abiding by all the safety rules and safety procedures. So you're going to need someone in that case that's experienced, one, and two, that are really compliance first. So something like that would be somebody that has a lot of experience auditing, right? Maybe they worked for a bigger company, they did auditing or whatever role they were in. They did a lot of audits and inspections and things like that, because then they have to have that basic understand of how to read the code, right? So what's the OSHA code? So this is just the Cliff Notes version, folks, right? That's the Cliff Notes, and that is fine point writing, right? So that'll just kind of tell you, and that's not all the interpretations, everything like that. So you need somebody that can make their way through this line item by line item essentially, and make sure you're able to do it. And they're going to need to have that bank of knowledge from the get-go, because they're going to need to come in and hit the ground running in there. So that's what I mean by compliance. Something like that. Now it could be somebody now you got to look at, right? So do you need somebody with formal training and safety or not? That's up for debate. Some of the best safety professionals I've ever known never had any formal training in it. They kind of came up through the ranks, learned it, started off as maybe a coordinator or a specialist or a technician, worked their way through the ranks over the years and really got adept at it and became some of the best safety people out there. As a matter of fact, my preference for hiring people to work in safety departments that I happen to be ahead of I want somebody off the floor, because they kind of know the reality of it, right? So, and this is not to knock anything, but sometimes you can get individuals that have gone through school that have never worked formally on the floor, and they'll get there. They just have to learn it, but there's a bigger learning curve that way, right? So, I think to me it means a lot when somebody can look at a job and say, yeah, well, okay, that's going to make this hard in this way if we do that, or they're able to critically think because they've done the job and they've seen it and they kind of understand that, or they understand the impact of what they're going to demand of their workforce is on that workforce. So they can take that into account, and from that they kind of know how to build that support from the shop floor level up. But so that's what I mean by that. And so if you have somebody that has formal training and with a lot of auditing background come in, if you're compliance first, let's say you're hiring it because somebody left or somebody got hurt and you've either never had a safety professional, or sometimes this happens, right? You had a safety professional who maybe wasn't performing at a high level, and you got audited and you were left in shambles because it found out. It happens. So if that's the case, that you probably want somebody that's compliance heavy, compliance first, with a lot of auditing background to come in, because they're going to be able to get you at least OSHA prepared right away. They're also going to focus on workplace, and employee safety. That's the whole OSHA code. But their big thing is, right, they want to prevent you from OSHA coming in and levying potentially debilitating amounts of fines if they were to find something. So there you want to kind of look at that. Now there's somebody else that's out there, and I probably fall into this group more than the compliance heavy, is I'm more of a culture heavy guy. So And I did another video briefly talked about where I got started in safety, and I really appreciate that company. And so this is not to badmouth them, but they had a horrible culture when I first started there, and I was an hourly guy. I was part of that. I was part of the bad culture because we had this, you can't tell me what to do attitude, and this, and it ended up resulting in some pretty bad incidents happen at that plant. But when I did take the job, when I did get offered the job after applying for it and all this good stuff, it was because I had a change in mindset. Workplace death I was involved in, and that really woke my eyes up to what I wanted to do. And so I went in there, and so over the years I've been fortunate enough to be with a few companies, and several times I would come in and maybe there had been bad relationships between management and the workforce before in one case. In another case, they had really high injury rates, and they had recently lost their safety manager, had left for another opportunity, I believe. But and then there's just other reasons. I don't want to go into it and start, pointing out different companies, but usually I found my niche to be coming in and building cultures that maybe weren't the strongest. Like maybe they had all their systems in place, maybe they weren't getting enforced, right? Or maybe they just couldn't get the buy-in from the shop floor. Whereas I would come in and that's where I'd start focusing. So for instance, in my current company, it's a startup. Now it's part of a larger company, but it's a brand new building, and we're starting a whole new system, new processes, and it's different parts of the company that are coming in, and we're filling that out. And so you're really culture building from day one there. And kind of the mistake I had, and this is a thing, you can teach an old dog new tricks. I'm proof of that, because I came in thinking, oh, well, it's new, we're getting all these new employees. They're not going to have bad habits that I have to fix like some of the other places I've been at. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and we're going to lay down the rule from day one, and that's it. That's our safety culture. Well, hello, that's not the way it works out, right? The way it works out is, in that case, you're bringing them from all over the place, and they're just bringing in whatever culture they had from the last place they were working at. And so now you have to build a foundation. First, you have to build an understanding of what safety culture means to your company. You have to let them know what that vision is, where are you seeing it, and then you got to find, and I heard this number once and I've kind of bought into it, if you need to find 20%. If you can get a baseline of 20% of your workforce that is bought in, and they don't even need to be 100% bought in, but primarily bought in. They're kind of like, yeah, sometimes they overstep a line or whatever like that, but I believe in this. I want to do something, and you can get them actively engaged and speaking up and doing the right thing out there. All of a sudden now you have a baseline. So all the people coming in after that 20% really starts looking out for them, kind of taking them under their wings, pointing them out, looking out for them. And slowly that 20% turns into 25. And then that 25 turns into 30. That is probably easier to do in a startup than something that's been there for 40 years and you're trying to constantly battle the whole, well, this is the way we've always done it. Well, I've worked here for 40 years and I've never been seriously injured. That is a battle. I've been at so many places like that. But the newer place, while you don't have a culture from scratch, you have to build that, and I'm finding out it's taken a couple years. We've been compliant and all that stuff, but we're really trying to build both at the exact same time. And it's been interesting because I'm fortunate enough, I've said this before, the place I'm at, the company itself takes workplace safety, but really I'm finding out that the workforce I'm at is really buying in to, I think, kind of the vision that we have going forward. We hear comments about, hey, we talk about safety every day, and it's the first thing we talk about in the morning, and we talk about it several times during the day, and some people even complain about it. It's too much safety. I'll take that criticism, I guess. But anyway, so you really got to figure out, is that what you're looking for? So compliance versus culture. What are you trying to do? If the system's already in place, really, if you want those systems to take off and start taking over for themselves, where the workforce is running your safety, which I think is eventually what everybody should aim towards. And I'll talk about safety culture in another longer video and my thoughts on it anyway. But if those systems are in place and you feel that you're pretty compliant, I would heavily emphasize you go somebody that's culture oriented. There's not a right or wrong in that. It's just the way I personally see it. Because if you build that culture, all of a sudden you have a ton of people that can help you with the inspections, help you with the auditing, that are willing to learn what are the rules, and I can help out with that. I can be a champion for cranes and overhead lifts. I can be a champion for powered industrial trucks. I can be a champion for PPE or whatever it may be. And then we start giving them some specialized training. And even though they're hourly workforce on the floor, or supervisors, team leads, you name it, if you train them and build them up, now they're your eyes and ears on the floor, and it makes that compliance bit quite a bit easier. But you got to have that starting base. And then I kind of referenced it earlier. So what do you want to do? Do you want to hire somebody that has a lot of education in safety? Do you want to hire somebody from the shop floor? Well, if you know your shop floor well enough, I think if they're trainable, most people can find good safety individuals right from the floor. Maybe not ready for, safety manager right now, but if you have the convenience, like in my role, I'm a safety manager in a plant, and I was allowed to hire a safety technician, somebody to come in and help me out. And the question at the beginning is, well, how, are you looking to hire somebody with college education? I said, no. I said, I think we have plenty of people in this plant alone that can fill the role. And so what I was looking for when we went into that, and I was fortunate. I had several people apply for the role, and there were several people that qualified for the role. And it was really interesting to go through that process, and it was really painful to make the decision, to the point where I had to make a spreadsheet. I made a breakdown spreadsheet of what I was looking for, what the plant needed, all this. And I had between 3 or 4 people there out of, I think we interviewed 8 or 9. I had 3 or 4 people that, given what I needed at the exact moment in time, would have dictated which person would have filled that role. And I'm fortunate, not everybody has that. But I think if you start developing those relationships on the floor, and you really are starting to be able to identify your high performers, and you start developing those relationships with them, what you do is you start realizing, holy cow, I got a good workforce. I got some people here that with some talent. And then just the hardest part of that is making the decision, which one this time. So for instance, we had, I just say, without giving anything away, I had say 3 or 4 people that were on the top, and given the point in time and where we were at in the plan, and what systems we had in place, and what systems we weren't sure were coming in, and ones we didn't know were coming in, we had to make decisions based on that. And had the decision been maybe 9 months down the road, that might have been a completely different person. Not that it disqualified anybody else, but that gave that person a nudge up here. And it was really this battle now. I'm just one that's thoroughly convinced your shop floor, if you're trying to build from within, and then you also create that recognition in people that safety is a way to elevate yourself through the ranks, so to speak. So, and I always tell, part of my selling point for safety is, if you get into safety, let's say you try it out for a year or two or something like that, and you just kind of think, well, no, I think I'd rather get back into operations, or I'd really want to try something in a different route within the company. And if you have a company like mine where you can really push that safety as a benefit to every aspect of what you do, that's a notch in your belt. From my standpoint, if I lose a safety tech or a safety specialist, and they go back out on the floor to be maybe a line supervisor, oh my God, I've just won, because they know all the stuff I'm looking for out there on the safety thing. And that just takes that load off the safety department, because you have somebody who knows it, who gets it, who understands the reasoning behind it, which is hard to get across the shop floor, because you only get them for so many minutes a month to do safety training. Whereas you get them in your department, you really get to develop it and have conversations quite frequently and tell them, this is why we do this, or this is what we're looking for, and this is how you identify this. You don't get all that time with everybody on the shop floor. It's not knocking the people on the floor. It's just like you get them for training, maybe 45 minutes a month. And then maybe you have a stand-up meeting for 5 minutes a day where you get to talk to some of them, and then you have a committee meeting maybe once a week, and you get but then you're doing this, it just doesn't work. So I really, before people start going elsewhere for coordinators and safety techs and safety specialists, really, if you got people that are high performers on the shop floor, you just got to determine if you're willing to put in a little effort and time and develop them, because I think they're some of the strongest people out there. I can name 1, 2, 3, 4. I can name 5 off the top of my head that I've had over the years that really have turned into stellar performers. There's 3 off the top of my head that started from shop floor. One was a department supervisor, but other ones were just shop floor individuals that came in and elevated themselves, and they're managers now, and they found a career in safety. They really liked it. So those are some of the things you really want to focus on. What are the qualities in those safety professionals? So one, they need to be serious about safety. They don't want to come into, you don't want to hire somebody that's getting in because they want a position of authority. Because that is a position where if somebody wanted to abuse their authority, they could do it, right? And that can get you in a lot of trouble too. So they got to be serious about safety. And what I mean by serious about safety is they got to really care about the people in the plant. That may sound self-serving, right? But I really do. If you don't care about the people that you work for, if you're not serious about looking out and you do not want them getting hurt, safety's not the right role, because you're going to take a lot of barbs, and you have to have a sense of meaning to what you do. And taking in something like this, you have to have a strong feeling about it. They have to be good with people. Now, some could argue I'm not the right person for this one, right? But you have to be good with people. You have to be able to sit down and weather storms and let people vent to you, and you have to be able to convince them of things and work them through. You have to be able to train people and mentor them. So there's an aspect of servant leadership to the safety role, because you really are there. You're not there to produce goods. You're there to keep people safe. We don't deal with goods. We deal with people. That is our role. And so now you have dual loyalties, right? Dual duties. You have to serve the workforce is your number one, but you also have to serve your employer, because you're also looking out from them to make sure things are covered. So it's a dual role. Sometimes those can conflict a little bit, right? Especially when it comes to when do you lay down discipline, when do you not, when do you use a training, but you'll work your way through that. That just takes time and the culture that your company you work for has. And then finally, I kind of referred to the servant leadership and the mentorship, but you gotta be somebody who can train, somebody who can publicly speak. You don't have to be a pro public speaker, but as a safety professional, you're going to be in front of groups of people a lot. You're going to be doing trainings. You're going to be trying to hold safety swarms. You're going to be doing incident investigations. And you have to be able to shift gears. You have to be able to talk. You have to be able to understand what you're about to tell people, because there's going to be questions and they're going to be doubting you. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of pushback. Well, why are you making me do this when I can't do this first? And you have to be able to sit there and look them in the eye and explain it. Because if you can't explain it, they're going to see right through it, especially if you're trying to make it up on the fly and you tell them bad information, because I'm guaranteeing you, for every topic you cover, somebody in your workforce has a little more expertise than you because they've been exposed to a certain situation, right? So anyway, if I'm hiring, if I'm you and I'm advising you, hey, I'm looking for somebody to come in, that's what I'd go with. You want to focus on 1, compliance first or culture first, and it really depends on where your plant is, right? And 2, do I want somebody with that formal training, and is it closer to a starting at a manager role or a higher position? That probably has to weigh in at the time. Or is it somebody who's coming in at a lower level who we want to build into that safety professional? Because I also feel strongly that it's not a role that you want to just, have people coming in and going out, coming in and going out. You want to kind of stabilize that role, because the workforce does pick up if safety people rifle in and out quickly. They pick up on that, and they understand that there's probably some issues there. So those are my 2 cents on who you would hire in a safety role if you're looking for somebody. If anybody has any questions, anything like that, please ask me. Again, these are Papa Todd Takes. I'm Papa Todd. Stay safe out there. Hoping you turn back in shortly. All right, you guys have a good evening. Take care. Bye.